My family chose my little golden brother, but when they found out about my finances they told me to buy them a house. My name is Wesley Grant, and I'm 37 years old. For most of my life, I felt like a guest in my own home. Not a visitor exactly, but someone who existed quietly in the background, expected to behave, stay out of trouble, and never ask for too much. My younger brother, Clayton, just 2 years my junior, never experienced life that way. He was the heartbeat of the household, the one my parents doted on, protected, and built their world around. From an early age, it was clear to me that we weren't treated the same. But it wasn't until much later that I understood just how deep the imbalance went. We grew up in a modest neighborhood in northern Indiana. Our parents, Douglas and Lena, were hardworking, middle-class folks. Dad worked for the county utility board, while Mom worked part-time as a dental assistant. We weren't rich, but we weren't struggling either. At least, not in the way many families did. We had enough for family dinners, modest birthdays, and the occasional weekend getaway. They could afford to care for us both. But from the beginning, their energy and attention gravitated toward Clayton. When I asked for something, I had to explain why I needed it, how much it cost, and whether it was really that important. When Clayton wanted something, it was simply, let's see what we can do. I remember one Christmas when I was 6. I had been asking for a navy blue train set I saw in a catalog for weeks. When I unwrapped it on Christmas morning, I was overjoyed. That night, I set it up around the tree and spent hours watching the engine circle the track. But the next morning, Clayton, who had received a pile of gifts already, saw it and decided he wanted it too. He cried and pouted until my dad took the train set from me and handed it to him. "Wesley, be a good big brother. Let him play with it," he said firmly. Clayton never gave it back. And that was just the beginning. When I was 12, I had my first piano recital after months of practice. I left 3 handwritten tickets on the kitchen counter, one for Mom, one for Dad, and one for Clayton. I even drew little stars around their names, hoping they'd notice. The night of the performance, I walked onto the stage, looking out over the dimly lit auditorium, scanning the crowd. But their seats were empty. Clayton had a mild cold, and my parents decided to skip the recital to take him to urgent care. They told me the next morning over cereal like it was nothing. My music teacher ended up driving me home that night, trying to comfort me with awkward conversation and soft encouragements. At 14, I won a state-level science competition. I had spent months preparing, staying after school, working on a solar filtration model that even my science teacher said was college-level work. No one at home even mentioned it. That same day, Clayton scored a single goal during his middle school soccer match. My mom baked cupcakes and put a banner on the garage door that said, "Champion." I wasn't even asked about the competition. Year after year, this pattern continued. No matter how hard I worked, academic awards, community volunteering, school leadership positions, it never seemed to register. Clayton, on the other hand, was praised for the smallest effort. A B+ on his report card was met with clapping and ice cream. Meanwhile, I graduated middle school with honors and got a nod and a "that's nice" before dinner. I kept pushing myself, convinced that eventually, I'd do something that would earn their recognition. But that moment never came. After high school, something changed. I received a full scholarship to a university in Colorado, 3 states away. It was a top-tier school with one of the best business programs in the country. I got the acceptance letter in the mail one Tuesday afternoon and ran into the kitchen, clutching the envelope, heart racing with excitement. Dad was reading the newspaper. Mom was washing dishes. I held up the letter. "I got in. Full ride, everything's covered." Dad looked up, his eyes scanning the page. "That far away," he said with a frown. "You really think you need to go that far just to get a degree? Your mother and I could use help around here. College isn't just about tuition, there's food, travel, emergencies." I blinked. "But everything is covered. Room and board too. I can get a part-time job if I need to." Mom dried her hands on a towel, her expression unreadable. "Clayton starts college in 2 years. We'll have to pay for his tuition. We can't stretch ourselves for both of you." I remember standing there in silence, letter trembling in my hand. The excitement I had felt only moments before slowly sank into something else, confusion, disbelief, and then a familiar sense of disappointment. Even with everything paid for, even with me asking for nothing, I was still considered a burden. That was the moment I stopped expecting anything from them. I packed my things quietly. On the morning I left, no one helped me with my bags. Clayton was still asleep. My parents waved from the porch without getting up from their lawn chairs. I got on the bus with 2 suitcases and no idea what waited for me. But for the first time, I felt something close to peace. No expectations. No shadows to chase. Just space, finally, to become someone on my own terms. College life wasn't easy, but for the first time, I had control over my own future. I moved into a small dorm on the north side of campus. The building was old, and the radiator rattled like it was haunted, but it was mine. I didn't have to explain myself to anyone. I didn't have to compete for space or affection. It wasn't glamorous. I took early morning classes, skipped dinners to save money, and often studied in the library until they kicked me out. But even in the stress and struggle, there was something liberating. My roommate, a mechanical engineering major named Russell, used to joke that I ran like a machine. "Wes, do you even sleep?" I've never seen someone study budgets for fun. But I wasn't trying to impress anyone. I was trying to survive. While other students took electives for fun, I picked courses that would add value. I majored in real estate finance because I knew it had clear outcomes, licenses, commissions, ownership. I couldn't afford to chase dreams. I needed something that paid back. I found a part-time job at a local realty office near campus. The pay was low, $14 an hour, but the office manager, a retired broker named Mr. Carver, believed in rewarding effort. Every time I answered the phones, sorted contracts, or filed listings, I watched how deals were made. I listened to how experienced agents spoke with clients, how they negotiated and built trust. And I learned. When a junior agent left suddenly, Mr. Carver asked if I wanted to try helping with a rental showing. I said yes before he finished the sentence. I showed a small 2-bedroom to a couple of grad students. I didn't even know how to fill out the paperwork yet, but I figured it out. 2 days later, I earned my first $200 commission. I sat on the edge of my bed that night, holding the check. It felt surreal. It was the first time I had made real money, not by luck, not through charity, but because I worked for it. From that point forward, I never stopped. Between class and office hours, I built a small client base. I tracked every dollar I earned, logged every hour worked, and created spreadsheets for future investments I didn't even have money for yet. At night, I researched market trends. On weekends, I shadowed agents at open houses. While most of my classmates went to tailgate parties or weekend getaways, I was learning property law, mortgage options, and city zoning maps. Every semester, I sent my parents a brief email update, mostly out of habit. Classes are going well. Hope things are good at home. Most of the time, I didn't get a reply. When I did, it was usually short. "Clayton's thinking of transferring. We're helping him find a better program." No questions about me. No acknowledgement of what I was doing. Eventually, I stopped sending updates. It wasn't anger. It was acceptance. I realized they weren't interested in who I was becoming. So I kept building quietly. By the time I graduated top 10% of my class, I had 3 years of part-time experience, several closed deals, and a few clients who had already promised to work with me full-time. While my classmates celebrated, I spent the next morning signing a lease for a small apartment and updating my business website. I wasn't done. I was just getting started. In the first year after college, I made more than both my parents combined. I didn't flaunt it. I lived with 2 roommates and drove a 10-year-old sedan, but I tracked every investment and reinvested every dollar. At 25, I bought my first house. A $480,000 property in a growing suburb. I used $300,000 in savings for the down payment and secured a solid loan for the rest. I didn't tell anyone. Not even Russell. Not because I was hiding, but because I knew what would happen if word got out. The last time I had shared success with my parents, they acted like it was an inconvenience. Like I was somehow disrupting the family balance. So I kept it to myself. That house? It became my first rental property. A year later, I bought another. Then another. By 28, I own 4 single-family homes and 2 small commercial spaces. I built a small team. I started a company. I made partnerships with local contractors and investors. Meanwhile, Clayton struggled to keep a job. He had bounced between 2 different community colleges before dropping out, and then spent a year trying different careers, graphic design, retail, even landscaping. Each time he quit, Mom would call it a season of figuring things out. Dad always had an excuse ready. Clayton's just wired differently. He's creative. He'll find his niche. When he turned 25, my parents co-signed a lease for a downtown loft and gave him a car as a birthday gift. That same year, I closed my first 6-figure real estate deal. No one called. No one asked how I was doing. But I was past expecting that. I had grown numb to it. And then, one day, it changed. I got a text from my dad, short and direct. "Dinner tomorrow?" Come by the house. 6:30. No hello, no how are you? Just an invitation, as if I lived 2 blocks away and we saw each other every weekend. I almost ignored it. But something in me, a reflex I hadn't outgrown, still hoped it might be different. That maybe this time, they wanted to see me, not just the idea of me. So, the next evening, I pulled into the driveway I hadn't visited in years. The house looked the same. Faded green siding, cracked walkway, porch light that flickered like a tired memory. I stepped inside and was greeted with the scent of baked chicken and warm cornbread. It felt too familiar. Mom smiled like nothing had changed. Wesley, it's good to see you. Dad clapped me on the shoulder. Been too long. Clayton was there too, lounging on the couch with a soda in hand, wearing sneakers I recognized from a high-end designer catalog. Dinner was quiet at first, then the questions began. Not about me. About Clayton. His ideas for a business. His potential venture. The opportunities he was exploring. I ate slowly, responding when prompted. They didn't ask what I'd been up to. I didn't volunteer anything. But the truth? They already knew. The moment it all changed didn't come with yelling or a fight. It came with a text notification. We had just finished dinner. I was in the kitchen refilling my glass of water when my phone, which I had left on the dining table, buzzed twice. Nothing unusual. I'd gotten used to constant messages from clients, agents, and contractors. But this time, Clayton picked it up. Let's see what Mr. Mysterious is hiding, he joked, smirking at the screen. I walked back into the room just in time to see his expression shift from amused to surprised, then to something else entirely. Whoa, he said, holding the phone up. Wesley, what is this? On the screen was an email notification from my lawyer confirming a recent property acquisition. Purchase agreement finalized, Birch Hollow Lodge, $1,350,000. The room went still. Mom stopped mid-sip. Dad lowered his fork. Clayton set the phone down like it had burned him. Is this real? My dad asked after a long pause. I picked up the phone and turned the screen off. Yes, I said calmly. I just closed on a small resort property upstate. Mom blinked. Where did you get that kind of money? No congratulations. No pride. Just suspicion. I didn't answer immediately. I waited. I knew the next question would matter more. Clayton leaned forward, eyes narrowing. Why didn't you tell us? And there it was. I took a breath. No one ever asked. Silence again. But this time, it was loaded. A few minutes passed before Dad cleared his throat and smiled too easily. You've done well for yourself, son. We always knew you had it in you. He reached over and patted my shoulder like he had coached every step of the journey. If you had told us earlier, maybe we could have helped you plan better, guided you. I resisted the urge to pull my arm away. I'm fine managing on my own, I replied quietly. Then Mom chimed in, suddenly upbeat. You know, we've been thinking about relocating anyway. The house is getting a little cramped, and the plumbing's been acting up. There's a beautiful place in Oakview with a wraparound porch and space for grandkids one day. About $2 million. Nothing flashy. Just comfortable. She said it like she was suggesting a movie to watch. I stared at her, unsure if I had heard correctly. $2 million? Dad nodded, warming to the idea. It's not an expense, it's an investment. You'd keep the house in your name. We'd just live there together. Think of it as upgrading your family's future. I set my glass down. So, you're asking me to buy it? He paused. Technically, invest. You're the successful one now. It's only fair you help out a little. The words landed heavily. Fair. That was the word they used. Before I could respond, Clayton jumped in. Honestly, Wes, you could do a lot more with your money if you thought bigger. Real estate's great and all, but what about seed funding? I turned toward him. What kind of seed funding? He smiled, like he'd been waiting for that question. There's this house I've had my eye on, Lakeside Ridge. Modern architecture, smart systems, big enough to host retreats or influencer events. It could be a business and a residence. 5 beds, a private dock, even a home theater. I'd need about $4.8 million to make it happen. I raised an eyebrow. $4.8 million? He nodded, completely serious. I've already talked to a designer and scoped out some furnishings. It's basically turnkey. all I need is you. I leaned back in my chair. You're asking me to buy you a multi-million-dollar mansion? It's not just for me. It's an asset. You'd technically own it. I just live in it and run the brand from there. I studied him for a moment. You've never managed a business. Never saved money. Never held a job longer than a season. And you want me to hand you nearly $5 million for your lifestyle experiment? His face tightened. It's not about lifestyle. It's about opportunity. You have the means to change my life. Isn't that what family does? My laugh was short, flat. Is that what family did for me? That struck a nerve. Dad's voice rose slightly. Wesley, we're not asking for the world. Your mother and I just want a better home. Your brother needs a chance to succeed. Why are you acting like it's such a burden? Mom added quickly. It's not like we're strangers. We're your family. A few $100,000 to help your brother get started shouldn't be a big deal for you anymore. I looked between them. If it's such a small amount, why haven't you helped him yourselves? We did, Mom said, a bit defensively. But now things are different. You're the one in a position to give back. Clayton folded his arms. You don't trust me, do you? I didn't answer right away. Then I said. You want a shortcut. Not to build something, not to learn discipline. Just instant success with someone else's money. He stood up. I'm your brother. And I was your brother too, for the last 30 years, I said, voice calm. Where were you when I needed someone to believe in me? To invest in me? Silence again. Dad stood too, this time his tone sharper. You're being selfish. We've given everything we could. It's time for you to step up. I nodded slowly. You're right. You've never asked me for anything, because you always assumed I owed you. The tension was thick. I pushed back my chair. I think I'll head out. Mom's voice was ice. You walk out now, Wesley, don't bother coming back. I paused at the door. You only showed up once you realized I had something you wanted. That's not family. That's convenience. And I walked out. But I had no idea how far they were willing to go. Because that wasn't the end. It was just the beginning of what they were about to try next. For a while, I didn't hear from them. No calls, no texts. Not even passive-aggressive messages from relatives. I thought maybe they had taken the hint. That hope didn't last. A few weeks later, I was in my office, going over renovation budgets, when my phone rang. It was my father. I almost let it go to voicemail, but something in me, habit, maybe made me answer. Wes. He said, his voice already trembling. We're in trouble. I set my pen down. What kind of trouble? There was a pause. The bank is threatening to take the house. I leaned back in my chair. You mortgaged it? We had no choice, he said. A business opportunity came up, a restaurant investment. A friend of mine was looking for partners. It sounded solid, and your mother and I thought it could help with retirement. I cut him off. How much did you borrow? There was a long silence. $300,000. My stomach turned. $300,000? Against the house? We thought we could repay it quickly. The business collapsed. It wasn't our fault. No, I said quietly, but it was your decision. We're going to lose everything, Wesley. We don't have the money. Please, can you help us cover it? Just a loan. I swear, we'll pay you back. I didn't respond right away. I could pay it. It wouldn't hurt me. But that wasn't the point. Something didn't feel right. I need time to think about it, I said. There's no time, he said, almost panicked. The bank sent a final notice. If we don't act this week, it's over. I said I need time, I repeated. I'll call you. I hung up. Then I made a different call. Jessica, my longtime friend and one of the best financial analysts I knew, picked up immediately. I need you to look into my parents' mortgage, I told her. They say they're about to lose the house. Something feels off. I want every detail. Who signed, when, how much? Everything. She was silent for a second. You've got it. I'll start right away. Later that evening, she called back. Wes. I've got the documents. I braced myself. What did you find? They did mortgage the house, she confirmed. 8 months ago. But your father didn't take the loan. What? I asked, confused. Who did? Your brother, Clayton. The deed was transferred into his name. He's listed as the sole borrower. My heart dropped. Say that again. Your parents signed the house over to Clayton a year ago. Right after that dinner. A few months later, he took out a $300,000 loan against it. I sat there in stunned silence. Jessica continued. Not only that, he never made a single payment. The house is weeks away from foreclosure. So they gave him the house, he used it to get cash, and now they're trying to get me to pay off the mess, I said slowly. That's what the documents say. And the money? Gone. No trace of any investment. No business registration. Nothing. Just a transfer of funds into Clayton's personal account. It wasn't desperation. It was strategy. The moment they realized I had money, they crafted a plan. Sign over the house. Take out a massive loan. Let it fail. Then guilt me into paying for it all. I clenched the phone. I want every document. All of it. Already emailed. Wes. She hesitated. I'm sorry. I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. Thank you, Jess. The next morning, I drove to the house. I hadn't been back since the night they asked me to buy them a mansion. It looked the same. But it felt different. They were waiting. My dad opened the door before I knocked. You came, he said, like we were old friends meeting for coffee. My mother sat at the dining table. Calm. Confident. Clayton leaned against the kitchen counter, phone in hand, barely glancing up. I walked in and placed a folder on the table. We need to talk, I said. They sat down, trying to act casual. My father even smiled. We were just about to have coffee. I slid the documents toward him. You told me the bank was seizing your house. You said you mortgaged it for a restaurant investment. You lied. The room froze. He opened the folder with trembling hands. You signed the deed over to Clayton, I continued. He took the loan. You knew the money wasn't for a restaurant. It was never about saving a home, it was about extracting as much as you could from me. My mother's voice hardened. It doesn't matter now. We're still your family. We're asking for your help. I turned to Clayton. You took the money. You wasted it. You let this house fall into default. And now you expect me to bail you out? He shrugged. You have the money. It wouldn't even dent your net worth. What's the problem? The problem, I said evenly, is that none of you told the truth. My dad's voice cracked. Wesley, please, we're out of options. You had options, I replied. You just didn't choose the honest one. My mom crossed her arms. So you're just going to let the house be taken? After everything we gave you? What did you give me? I asked. You never paid for my education. Never supported my goals. You couldn't even be bothered to show up at my recitals or competitions. Now you want to rewrite history because I turned out all right without your help? Clayton stood up, raising his voice. You think you're better than us because you made some money? I looked him dead in the eyes. No. I think I'm better than someone who lies, manipulates, and expects a reward for it. My father looked like he wanted to argue, but the words didn't come. Finally, I said. I'll make you an offer. I'll buy the house outright. At market value. You can stay here as tenants if you want, but under lease, not as a gift. If you refuse, the bank will take it. Your choice. My mother slammed her mug on the table. We are not tenants in our own home. Then I can't help you, I said calmly. She stood up, shaking. You're no son of mine. I looked at her for a long time. No. I haven't been, not to you. And I left. That night, I expected closure. But I was wrong again. Because 2 weeks later, my attorney called. Wesley, he said. Your parents are suing you. When my lawyer told me my parents were suing me, I didn't react the way he expected. I didn't shout. I didn't panic. I just sat there for a long moment, letting the absurdity of it settle into place. They're filing a claim for what? I asked. Parental support, he said. They're stating that you, as their adult child, are financially responsible for their care. They're claiming they have no income, no home, and that you have the means to assist. I leaned back in my chair. So, after trying to deceive me, lying about a loan, and handing over the house to my brother, they've decided to force it through court. They also claim they made significant sacrifices to raise you and that you've turned your back on them in their time of need. A bitter laugh escaped me. Of course they did. The lawsuit wasn't about money. Not really. It was about entitlement. It was about rewriting the past, forcing me to play a role I had never been given the chance to fill. We can contest this easily, my lawyer added. You've never received financial support from them since you turned 18. In fact, all evidence points the other way. Their case won't hold up in court. I want to see this through, I said. No settlements. No quiet agreements. I want this on record. The court date came quickly. They arrived together, my father looking older, shoulders hunched, bitterness etched into his face. My mother's expression was colder than I remembered. Clayton wasn't there. He'd disappeared after the confrontation over the mortgage. From what Jessica told me, he had moved across the country, chasing yet another creative project. As the proceedings began, their attorney painted them as victims, two aging parents who had given everything for their son, only to be abandoned once he became successful. They requested monthly support, $5,000 per month for the rest of their lives. $5,000. Even now, they were still assigning a dollar amount to what they believed they were owed. When my lawyer stood, he didn't shout. He didn't dramatize. He just laid out the facts. I had paid for my education through scholarships and work. I had never received financial assistance from them after high school. They had transferred the house to my brother without my knowledge. They had attempted to manipulate me into paying off a loan they themselves had orchestrated. And now, they were attempting to use the legal system to extract support. He showed records, emails, and financial statements. The judge, a woman with tired eyes and a calm voice, listened closely. She took only a few minutes to decide. There is no legal basis for this claim, she said. Case dismissed. My mother's face fell. My father stared down at the table. They had come expecting to win. They left defeated. After the ruling, I didn't rush out of the courtroom. I approached them one last time. They didn't look up. I told you once that I'd never come back, I said. And I meant it. I tried to give you a path forward. You chose to burn it. My mother opened her mouth to respond, but I didn't wait. I walked away, and this time, there was no hesitation. 1 year later, I never heard from them again. They disappeared. No updates. No apologies. No letters. The only person who ever mentioned them was Jessica. We were having lunch one afternoon when she said, I heard something through a colleague about your parents. I put my fork down. What about them? They left town. No forwarding address. No property. No contact with anyone. Not even Clayton? I asked. Jessica shook her head. Apparently, he cut ties with them after the lawsuit failed. No one's heard from him either. I didn't know how to feel. Sadness? Regret? Relief? What I felt was something different, clarity. They had finally let go. Or maybe, I had. In the time since the lawsuit, my life had continued to grow. The company I built expanded across 3 states. I bought new properties, started mentoring young professionals, and launched a scholarship fund for students like me, kids who worked hard but didn't have family to lean on. People often ask me why I focus so much on giving back. I told them the truth. Because someone should have done it for me. And because no one did, I understand how much it matters. That winter, Jessica and I were walking through a holiday market downtown. The air smelled like cinnamon and pine. She paused and looked at me. Do you ever think about them? Sometimes, I admitted. Not because I miss them. But because I wish they had been different. Not just for me, but for themselves. She nodded. That's a hard truth to carry. Yeah, I said, watching a little boy tug his dad's hand toward a toy stand. But I'm still here. I still got where I needed to go. That's what matters. I don't know where my parents are now. I don't know if Clayton ever figured himself out. But I know who I am. I'm not someone's backup plan. I'm not a wallet. I'm not a second choice. I'm a man who built his own life when no one else would. And that, more than money, more than titles, is what gives me peace. Because I finally know. I was always enough. Even when they didn't see it. Even when they never said it. I always was. Thank you all for watching the video, and see you soon.